Hello, good evening and welcome to Spotlight on MX24 Television. My name is Nuong Falong. We're still discussing small businesses in Ghana. The main problem that all small businesses identify with is access to finance. All small businesses are always complaining and looking for finance to scale up their businesses. How can they go about it in a way that makes it easier for them to improve their business processes? This evening, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Patrick Esuming, who's Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana, Kingsley Edu-Ochri, who's an investment professional and entrepreneur himself, Dr. Daniel Enim, economist. He's also going to join us shortly, and Dr. Sam Wolanyo Mensah. He is an economist and lecturer at the Wisconsin University of Ghana. They're going to be speaking to our questions. If you're an entrepreneur, please move closer to your TV set. You want to be part of this conversation. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us.
Your participation in the nomination and voting process doesn't just end there. It's now time to recognize and reward outstanding beverages in the Ghanaian market. Join Global Media Alliance at the 6th edition of Ghana Beverage Awards on the 25th of March 2022 at Kempinski Gold Coast City Hotel, Accra, as we find out who wins in the following categories: International Spirit, International Liqueur, Beer, Water, Bitters, Fruit Drink or Liqueur of the Year, amongst others, and who takes home the Most Coveted Product of the Year award. For table reservations and further details, contact 020-2222-095. GBA is in partnership with Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Ghana Tourism Authority, Consumer Protection Agency, Food and Beverage Association of Ghana, Food Research Institute CSIR, and our media partners. Ghana Beverage Awards, inspiring excellence in Ghana's beverage industry.
Ghana's most anticipated music celebration is back. The 5th annual 3 Music Awards 2022 coming to you live at the Grand Arena, Accra International Conference Center, Saturday the 26th of March at 7 p.m. Performing live, Black Sheriff, Kitty,
and bend over.
Comido, Kelvin Boy, Kwame Eugene, Aquabwa, Sina Soul, Joe Metal, Ohima Mercy, and many more exciting performances.
I won't comport myself, I can. I fall for you, can fly. I fall for you, can fly,
Dial *899*366# to get your general admission ticket at 250 Ghana cedis and your VIP tickets at 350 Ghana cedis. Call 0546-533-571 to reserve a table. 3 Music Awards 2022 is brought to you by 3 Music TV in association with Valentine's, Boomplay Music, HD Plus, Infinix Mobile, Bang & Olufsen, Hallmark Cafe. 3 Music Awards 2022. More than music.
Welcome back to Spotlight on MX24 Television. We are discussing SME financing, and we have Kingsley Edu-Ochri, an investment professional and entrepreneur. He's joining us via Zoom. We also have Dr. Patrick Esuming, who's senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, on Zoom. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to Spotlight.
Good evening, and good evening to all your cherished listeners and viewers.
Thank you.
Good evening and good evening to viewers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patrick. Let me go to Kingsley first. And quickly, when you start a small business, should the first thing you're looking for be financing of that business?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And in a recent study that was done some time back, it was indicated that yes, financing plays a critical role in the ultimate success of a business.
I
But then
see.
in the very early stage, what was discovered was that financing wasn't the cause for a lot of SME failure. Most causes of SME failure was because there wasn't what we call a good product market fit, which simply means that the founders or the entrepreneur started out a venture where there weren't customers for it. So I'll say, as an entrepreneur, your very first priority when it comes to you embarking or implementing your idea or venture should be to validate whether there are actual customers for it. That is a very pivotal part or role that you have to do first before you even think about financing. Because if you raise millions and billions of dollars and there isn't any ideal real world users for your product, you are going to fail. So yes, financing is critical, but that shouldn't be your very first focus when you start your business. It should be more around you validating whether there is a market for your product.
I see. Interesting. So first you have to establish a viable market for your product. Let me go to Dr. Patrick. I want to find out if he shares the same opinion. Dr. Suming.
Yes, largely I agree with him. I agree with Kingsley because the most important factor that determines the size and the profitability of enterprise is the market, the size of the market. So you have to have a product to sell, and the product has to be one that satisfies the needs of customers. You have to identify something that a gap or
Right.
something that is essential to the customers, and then that should be the focus. Once you establish that you have a very sound market, then you have to develop strategies on how you are going to develop your product, how you are going to reach your customers, and what your competitive advantages will be.
But there are some people who also think that the amount of finance you put into the business is what's going to determine the market for it. The pushing the product and scaling up will bring you markets. Isn't that a reasonable approach?
If there are no people who need what you are producing, no amount of funding will solve your problem, because you can have the financing, you can produce the product, and if people are not buying, the business will not be sustainable, no matter how much financing you have. So I think, having a product that, or having a market, a proper market, a sufficient market, is crucial. That, at least in terms of starting. Once you are running the business, once you notice that, oh, I have a market, or this is how much I can go, then maybe the finance become a little bit more important. But if you have all the funding in the world and you don't have a good product to sell, or you don't have a product that people want to buy, the financing won't help you.
So let me come back to you, Dr. Suming. But Kingsley, how do I determine how much financing I need? So I start a business, and the business is selling maybe 2 units of the product being produced a month. Can I just go for $1 million to finance my business? Do I have to wait for it to get to a certain level of demand? Because in your initial submission, you said you need to first establish a market that is buying your product. But I've established my market. If people are buying, if one person is buying, I've established a market, haven't I?
Yeah, so I'll first say good financing is again very critical to your business success. It has been established that sometimes when you have too much financing, it can even lead to the business not ultimately living up to expectation. And sometimes when you also have too little financing, that is also the case. So in the end, there is that optimal amount of financing which you always have to get as a founder or an entrepreneur. it's not too much beyond what you have to do and not too little. Now, it's also very important to note that as far as financing is concerned, which hopefully later we'll look at it, there are various sources of or places that you are likely to go for the financing. So let me just jump and just bring in an example. Let's assume you go for a bank loan and you go to take a bank loan of, let me say, 1 million cedis for an idea that you don't have so much of a market for, just some few users who are trying out your product. Now, assuming the bank is to grant you that facility, you would realize that the bank eventually, their ultimate goal will be that at the end of whatever period we've established, you should be paying me back my interest. Now, the problem arises where you don't have sufficient revenue being generated by the number of users buying your products. And in the end, you now have cash flow difficulty and you cannot even service your debts. So you realize that you started your business small, but you went to take a big money and you went to take that big money from a source which did not care, but was still going to take their financial obligation, which was interest, whether you did well or not. So that means that as far as you are trying to start a business, one, you should be able to know what stage of the business you are in before you are able to determine how much you need. Now, if you are in what we call the pilot phase, now the pilot phase is just like you are just trying to validate that idea. You may have done it to 1 or 2 users, but then you want to now reach out to a small or an extended version of the market, but not the entire market that you are foreseeing. You should be able to have a budget for that one. Now, as to what the amount should be, that will depend on the kind of business you are rolling out. When you move from that phase and now you want to scale, so maybe you started from Greater Accra and now you want to extend to the whole of Southern Ghana, then you should be looking at further amounts of money that should unlock that growth. Now you are done with Ghana, you want to go out of Ghana and go to West Africa. Then you should also look at a budget that should correspond that. So you have to know what stage of the business you are in and look for that amount of money that will be needed to unlock value in that stage. If you rush to go in for so much money without really understanding your real market and your actual revenue which you are going to get, you might end up shooting yourself in the foot. So knowing the stage you are in, knowing what optimal amount of money you need should trigger what amount you should go out for when you are looking for financing.
So when you say good financing, is that related to the source of the amount or the amount you're getting? Or it's about the source of financing?
So it can be a mixture. So let me say just financing. But good financing here was to explain that you can get some good amounts of money, but at the wrong time, when injected in your business, could lead to your business failure. Likewise, you can also be in the right stage of financing, but when you go for small amounts of money, could lead to a failure. So good financing, or let me say optimal financing, is that financing which, based on the stage of the business you are in, is enough to help you reach your goals at that stage.
Interesting. If I'm hearing you correctly, the financing can actually become a solution or a problem in its own to your business.
Yes.
Interesting. Let me go to Dr. Esuming. I'll come to you shortly. Dr. Esuming, when you hear the term building a self-financing business, what exactly does it mean? Because some people are of the view that your business has to self-finance itself.
So, yeah, in the initial stages. So I'm glad that Kingsley brought up the stage of your business and what kind of financing might be right for you. So, I mean, depending on the context. In our context, you know, we don't have a lot of financing for startups, especially for small businesses. Small startup businesses hardly have the kind of external financing they want. The extent to which we say that the business should be self-financing is that, you know, ultimately the business has to be profitable. You can't be setting up a business. So even if you go and get external financing, the business has to be self-financing in the sense that whatever product you have there, it has to generate sufficient returns, whether you've taken internal resources or external. So whether you are using your own funds or whether you are using internal profit that have been generated by the business to expand or to sustain the business, it has to be sufficient profit to be able to, for you to be able to service, if you've taken loans, for you to be able to service it and still remain viable. And at the same time, you have to be able to, if you are taking money from internal sources, you have to pay. From an economics point of view, it doesn't really matter whether you took somebody else's funds or you borrowed, because if you had your own funds and you are contemplating whether to put it in your business, you have to consider the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost might be that if you didn't put the money in your business, you could have put it into an interest-bearing asset, a bank or some other financial instrument, and earn a return. So whenever the return you could have earned by putting your money as anywhere is higher than the return you get from putting the funds in your own business, you shouldn't be putting the funds in your own business. So you have to question whether you should be financing that business from, regardless of the source. And obviously, if you are going to take the funds from, an external source, from whatever financial institution, it has to be that when you put the funds into the business, it's going to generate sufficient returns that will allow you to be able to pay for, the
finances that you have gone for. Okay, we're having problems with the line there for Dr. Suming. So I'll just go back to him shortly while we attempt to fix that line. Let me go to Mr. Ochri there. Hello, Mr. Ochri. While I was listening to Mr. Suming, I was wondering, so how will I be able to calculate if the business that you have started can pay for the finance that you're going for? How does a business determine this?
Yeah, so in very simple terms, we say a business, let me say, financial performance is basically the revenue it attracts or it generates, let me use that word, and then the expenses it has to meet. So as a business, yes, let's say you are selling a number of units. So maybe you are doing an iPhone business. So you are selling on average, let me say 10,000 pieces of an iPhone. At whatever price you are selling will determine what is coming in as your revenue. Now, out of that money, there will be some cost incurred regarding how much you are going to buy each unit of iPhone for to be able to sell it back. Maybe you have some staff, you'll be paying those expenses. Maybe you have some rent, you'll be paying those expenses, among salaries, among other costs that you'll be paying. So eventually, the amount that you have is what we will say is available to be able to meet any financial obligation. So let's assume you go for a bank loan, and in this case, your expenses are even more than your revenue, meaning the money you are already incurring, paying for your expenses, is even higher than what you are bringing in as a company. That means that you are even going to struggle to be able to meet interest payments on bank loan.
Wow.
Now, if you are also bringing in, let me say that your expenses that you have to make as a business is almost the same or slightly just higher than the revenue you are getting. Now, based on the interest rate that you have to pay to the external borrower or the interest amount that you have to pay to the external borrower, you might have some difficulty. So a very good business will be in the position to finance its external obligation. For example, a loan. If one, the amount they are getting in, which is their inflow, is giving them enough room for them to service their expenses or meet their expenses and give them that much needed room to be able to meet their debt obligation. That is why we normally say, for instance, that if you are a business and you are not generating revenue or you are not generating that much of an inflow at a certain scale, some instruments like bank loans might not be a good fit for you. Because if you are already not making so much money as a revenue and you are still having to pay your rent, your salaries, and your staff, going for a bank loan might increase the burden on you. So as much as possible, taking financing and knowing whether you are in the position to be able to meet that obligation should first start with how much do you think you can be able to make as a business. Factor in the expenses you have to make and see that room that you have. If there is enough room, then you can consider facilities like a bank loan. If there isn't enough room, then you would have to consider alternative sources.
Wow, that's quite some interesting information there. You mentioned bank loan, and I'm wondering when a business thinks about taking any financing, should the first thought be a bank loan, or should you be looking at other forms of financing before you think of a bank loan?
Exactly. So, as a business, the very first thing you should be thinking about should not be a bank loan, unless your business from day one is generating cash. We normally say bank loans are more suited for cash generating businesses. That is, businesses that are in the position to generate enough inflow or money to come in to be able to meet that. So as a business, normally as a startup, you wouldn't have reached that stage. So your first point of call shouldn't be a bank loan. Now, the very first point of call should be you looking for what we call free money. Now, free money
Is there
could
any
come
money
from
that's
your,
free?
well, yes, technically there isn't any money that is free, right? But then free money here should be, let me say, money that do not impose so much of a burden. Sometimes it might even come without any obligation. So it could be monies from your friends, it could be from your relatives, it could be from your family, from anybody that genuinely wants to support your business. That could be one point you can consider. You can consider grants. There are some instances where there could be grant facilities available for certain type of businesses that are fulfilling some impact mandate. You can consider those money, because for a grant, unless it's a matching grant, if it's most grants will not require you to pay back. So you can consider that amount of money, or you can bootstrap. Now,
So,
when you
so you're
use
saying
those,
first you look at grants, for example, because they seem to be the cheapest forms of financing. But anyway, let me give this to Dr. Suming, because it's not every business that's able to access grants. Where do you go to look for grants? Businesses are always looking for grants, but hardly many of them are able to make it to the finish line. And sometimes grants come with so many requirements that small businesses cannot meet. So where do the businesses begin to look for these grants?
Well, I mean, depending on what sector of the business, what sector you are operating in, there are different sources of grants. I mean, if you, especially by NGOs, you see there are a lot of international organizations that are supporting, for instance, women in certain sectors, whether in processing or small business of different kinds. So I think when he says that you should look at the hierarchy of the financing according to the sources. So it's not maybe for many Ghanaian small businesses that sometimes maybe the literacy and ability to find and process information might be challenging, but those sources actually exist. If you look at in agriculture, there will be many. You might find Agra, you might find other agencies, and then when you put that aside, we also have government grants themselves or government soft loans. These are interventions that government give to support small businesses in specific sectors. Sometimes in the COVID era, we've seen a lot of programs that are supporting small businesses. Sometimes they may not necessarily be grants, but because the government is seeking to promote, in addition to the finances, I mean, their objective primarily is not to make profit from making the loan, but to support businesses to grow. So sometimes the terms are much more friendly in terms of the time you have to pay, and also the interest cost that you have to pay. I mean, the time period given and the interest cost. So you should look for all of those. By all means, we have to be innovative, and then we have to be looking for the information. And then that's why there are a lot of business development. Some units have different business development departments, or there are some specialized institutions that are able to provide support to small businesses in terms of assessing these kind of grants. But they do exist. And then, like I said, you can graduate also to government-supported programs. I think in the last, they've always existed, but since the COVID, we've seen a number of additional ones coming up to support businesses small businesses in different areas. I'm sure you've also heard that there's been discussion about the U Start that will, when it comes on board, is going to support mostly entrepreneurs, people who are starting off. So there are all these these relatively cheaper sources of financing available. If you are definitely starting a business and you don't really have a proven concept, you have not generated record that what you are getting into is going to be profitable, then obviously seeking high cost financing, like from a bank, is probably not a great idea. It's not how you want to start. The other thing is that whatever source of funding you are looking for, you know, especially if you are not at the startup stage, record keeping is very important. Whether it's for a bank or it's for even a grant or it's for a government supported financing, because that is where you show that it is in the record keeping that you demonstrate your proof of concept, demonstrate that what you are trying to sell, there's a market for it and it's profitable. Even if you are not looking for loan, even if you are not looking for your own purpose of day-to-day management, you should be able to say, the enterprise I'm engaging, you should have proper records of your sales and your various cost items to be able to tell whether at the end of, on a monthly basis, on quarterly basis, on yearly basis, whether you are balancing your books and how much profit you are making, to be able to determine whether, in case you need expansion, where you have to go for, and then what sort of financing will be sustainable for your business.
So what indicators will show you that you need financing and you are ready for it, where to put the financing? What indicators do you look for before you decide that it's time to go for financing?
Well, I mean, mostly, again, it starts with having your sales record, right? I mean, if on monthly basis, or if you keep your records, you can see whether, especially if you are into business that sell in different places, you might be able to tell which locations are you seeing more demand. Sometimes it might even be seasonal. It might be that certain times of the day, of the month, or certain times of the year, there are more sales. And then it will tell you where and when you have to. But obviously, if you start a business and your sales are growing, and then sometimes you realize that there's more demand for your product compared to how much you're able to meet. And then you notice that, well, at the same time, your margins are not a lot. You are not generating enough to reinvest to expand on your own. Then it might be time to look for some external funding. But really, you need to have that information. And I think that record keeping, and then have some, if you need technical assistance or business support unit, to be able to look at your sales numbers, look at your cost numbers, and be able to tell you, given the trajectory you've been on, maybe it's time to expand in this sector, or it's time to look for external funding, or it's time to expand in these specific areas, whether it's geographic or not.
So how can you make your business attractive to sources of funding? Because you approach, I mean, it's not enough to say that I need financing. When you approach them, they're going to be, how do you avoid a high rejection rate and have more people want to associate with your business and give you their finances for your business?
So, like I just made in my previous submission, you know, when you seek funding, you are trying to tell a financial institution that, look, what I'm doing is profitable, and that if you put your funds in it, you know, I will be able to generate sufficient cash flow to pay, to service the whatever loan you are giving me. So, I mean, your main selling point is your books, your records, your sales. So you should have done that before you'll be able to go out there and demonstrate to somebody that, look, I'm into a very profitable business. Because sometimes, obviously, if it's going to be forward-looking, so you're going to make projections. The projections you are making should have some factual basis. You can't say that I'm going to grow 30% in the next year when you don't have any record to show that over the past few months or few years you've been growing at 20% and that growth is increasing. All of that will come in the numbers. All of that will come in the projections and so it starts with being able to keep proper records and being able to demonstrate to external potential financiers that this business is progressing, is moving forward, and it's time to take it to the next stage. And if they provide you with the financing, you will be able to pay. And that also helps with the interest cost, because then they will know that you have historical record. Then their risk assessment of the business might be lower, and that may help with the cost of credit you get.
Right, interesting. So the figures will tell you everything that you need to know. But let me, Ms. Ochiri, how else can you make yourself attractive as a business to these sources of finance? Can you add anything to what Dr. Esuming is saying?
Yes. So somewhere, I think last year or last 2 years, I, together with a colleague, we published an article on how businesses could make themselves attractive to increase access to finance. And I'll just lay out some of the pointers. So I like Dr. Esuming's point around the fact that record keeping is key as far as making yourself attractive is concerned. The second thing I'll just want to add is having access to a secure market. More often you see businesses, even in spite of their historical records, they come and then they are like, I want money to be able to serve this amount of clients. So they basically are asking for a facility, whereas they cannot show any off-take agreement. They cannot show any MOU which they've established with a buyer. They basically cannot show anything to give confidence to the supplier of the finance that I've had advanced discussion and there is a market for my product. When you have that, you are going to have struggle raising money. So as far as possible, try to secure your market when it comes to accessing finance. The second thing you can also do to make yourself attractive is the quality of your team. It is most often said that when financiers are investing in your business, the execution is what matters, because whatever ideas or projections you may have shared, if you don't have the right understanding of the business and of the industry, you might not be able to generate that projected revenues you've made. So they also assess the quality of your team. Do you have the right people manning the right places? Do you have somebody in charge of your books? Do you have somebody in charge of your operations? You have somebody basically
Okay,
in your operations.
My apologies there, but we're having a mix-up with some of the lines. We're just going to quickly work on that so we can get a better feed. Apologies for that. If you're just joining us, you're watching MX24 television. We're discussing SME access to financing. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, this conversation continues. We'll be opening the phone lines shortly, so if you're an entrepreneur, it's a great chance for you to call in and speak to our resource persons. We'll be right back.
If you're into content production for digital or TV, say hello to the MX24 Studios. We're the prime location for your music video shoots, live productions, TV shows, and more. From state-of-the-art equipment to a very skilled production team, we've got you covered. Step into our modern and spacious studio with a changeable lighting system and foolproof sound. Our touchscreen studio projection monitors come with other features, including Wi-Fi connection, screen mirroring, and a remote workspace mode. Take advantage of our high-quality cameras to shoot in 4K and a variety of the best lighting equipment guaranteed to put life into your sets. Locate us on the first floor of the Silicon House building off the Boundary Road, East Legon. Give us a call on 024 235 5956 or 054 454 8612. You can also email us at info@mx24gh.com.
Welcome back to Spotlight. You're watching MX24 television. We're discussing access to financing by SMEs. If you're an SME, please sit right next to your television. I'm going to give out the phone line shortly, and you can call in and put some questions to our panelists. But let me go back to the lines where we have Dr. Patrick Esuming, Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana, Kingsley Edu Ochiri, who is an investment professional and an entrepreneur himself. Also Dr. Daniel Enim, who is an economist, and Dr. Sam Wolanyo Mensah, also an economist and lecturer at the Wisconsin University of Ghana. And he just joined us, but he's on phone, so let me quickly go to Dr. Sam Wolanyo Mensah. Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening and good evening to our cherished viewers.
Thank you so much for joining.
And, good evening to Comrade Kanye.
We're just speaking to Dr. Patrick and Kingsley Ochiri about how businesses can make themselves attractive for financing. So when they seek financing, there's a higher probability of them getting the financing that they're seeking. If you can just put a bit of information on that for us.
Well, business financing has to start with some form of models. Now, first of all, we need to reprofile the economy and be able to develop the entrepreneurial skills. Now, most people are into business without having any idea of how businesses are being managed. And so, for that matter, we needed some form of legal and financial education, first and foremost. We need legal and financial education that will really put the people abreast of the major numerous challenges that
Can you
business
speak up
face.
for us, please?
Because
Your line is very
before
faint.
you go into certain venture, you need to know the challenges that are in such shows. And it's not the work of the government to really finance the operations of various businesses, but it's the work of the government to ensure that creates the enabling environment resource the various microfinance institutions and those of the rural banks very well, because they really take care of the small and medium scale enterprises. So they begin to pay attention to them, reprofile them. So in fact, it needs some form of social and economic orientations. Without that, because if I set up a business venture, no matter how that venture looks, I'm likely to misapplied or to mismanage resources in terms of liquidity, simply because I don't have that financial knowledge. And so it's not just about positioning the business to attract credit, but it's also being able to have financial knowledge and accounting knowledge. So government should make it a policy and a programs that in fact those who are going into or venturing into businesses, we have organizations that will have periodic training for such businesses. I think that's the most important thing for us to do. Once we do that, then they will begin to manage their businesses very well. Unless you are saying that people should write proposals, and based on the content of the proposal, we are giving them funding. But in this case, we are looking at businesses that are already in operations. And so when businesses are in operations, you want to look at their credit worthiness. You want to look at their corporate governance issues and whether they are able to live up to those professional ethical standards. And so these are issues you look at. And most entrepreneurs lack this kind of technical know-how. So it must, first of all, be the priority of the government to ensure that we set up certain institutions to be able to periodically give us this kind of tutorial and give us a sense of orientation and sense of direction.
I see. Thank you so much, Dr. Walanyo Mensah. Let me go back to Kingsley Autry, whose line we had issues with. I hope is more stable now. Kingsley, you were explaining a few points. Kingsley, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, so just to recap, I was first
do,
re-emphasizing the record-keeping point, which was shared by Dr. Patrick.
Okay.
Now, the second thing I added was that being attractive can be boosted sometimes when you have ready contracts to show. So if, for example, you're an agribusiness and you are speaking to a financing company, one key thing they'll be looking out for is offtake contract. Do you have the offtake contract? Have you secured it? Are you in advanced discussion to secure it? Having a ready market and being able to establish sale would show to a very large extent that there is a need for that money. And that is where the financier will be willing to plug in, because they really want to finance something where there isn't any market for it. So having an offtake contract could, to a very large extent, also make your business attractive. The very third thing you can do to make your business attractive is to have the right team. Now, as a financier, when I'm analyzing the business, I don't just analyze the idea being shared. Financiers also look at the quality of the team handling the business. Do you have the right person with the right technical know-how for the operations? Do you have the right person handling your books? Do you have the right person ensuring that there is sufficient sales being generated? Do you have the right person managing the day-to-day operations? Financiers look at that also. So the quality of a team could, to a very large extent, also determine how much attractive you are going to be to a financier. The other thing you have to also look out for is, beyond just day-to-day data record keeping, you should also be able to present some level of financials. Now, it is commonly said, or there's a popular adage which goes like, in God we trust, all other thing must bring data. So if I'm a financier and I'm looking to finance a company, I'll be asking for their financials, basically in the past. Can they share with me some financial statements of theirs? So as a business, when you have that readily available to provide to your financiers, they are able to make good informed decisions, which makes them also willing to finance you. So having financial statements for your past years is something that can also boost your chance as far as securing capital. And the last one I would want to touch on is having the right processes established in your business. So you are a manufacturing company. Do you have the right standard operating procedures that lays out what you do from the raw material acquisition to the eventual conversion into finished product? Financiers will ask for that information. You are an agricultural company, agribusiness, you are farming. Do you have the right production plan that says, we plant this time, we harvest this time, we sell at this time? Do you have that enough information to present to your financiers? They will ask for it. So if you don't have laid down well-documented procedures and policies, it can sometimes serve as an obstacle to you being able to raise finance. So being able to have that in place to show to your financiers is one other thing that can make you very attractive to them. So these are just the 3 points I would like to add to the point shared by Dr. Patrick.
Thank you so much. That's quite a lot of information there. Is what stands out for me: the quality of the team, the right procedures, laid down procedures, ready market. You also mentioned, like having an off-taker that takes off what you're producing, gives financiers quite a lot of confidence. Let me just go to Dr. Enim, who's also on the line. Hello, Dr. Enim. Good evening.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Doc, since you're an economist, I just wanted to find out from you. We have a question. Someone is trying to find out that the policy rate was recently increased by the Monetary Policy Committee by 250 basis points to 17%. Exactly what does it mean for small businesses? Can you shed some light on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, the central bank, which is the Bank of Ghana, is the bank of last resort. What it means is that anytime the commercial banks need additional liquidity, they resort to the central bank for more funds. They borrow from the central bank. So the policy.
Okay. That line is not being reliable there. We're having a few issues with it. But let me go to the... Okay. Let me just go to the other economist who's on the line, and that's Dr. Suming. Dr. Suming, if you don't mind, if you can just pick up from where Dr. Nim left off, that would be great.
That of the policy rate. So what it means is that now small scale businesses will find it very difficult to access loans at a very competitive rate. And the implications are that, one, even when they are able to access the loan, the cost of production will increase.
Okay, I think we should let's just go to Dr. Suming over there. Dr. Suming. Hello, Dr. Suming, are you still on the line?
Very high for the for instance, if you are of products from China.
Right. We're not having a very good connection there with Dr. Daniel Enim, so I'm just going to move the conversation back to Mr. Autry, who is still on the line. Mr. Autry, please give me a moment. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're watching, I'm just going to give out the lines to call, and that's 055-633-1511. Again, 055-633-1511. So I'll go back to Kingsley Autry. Kingsley, are you still on the line? Hello, Kingsley, can you hear me? Because I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, there we go.
I can hear
yeah,
you, Falon.
yeah. So you're not an economist, but are you able to speak to the policy rate and the business climate?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Oh, great. So, yeah, as far as the policy rate is confirmed, it sets an indication for general lending rates or general interest rates in the country. Now, as per the central bank's policy, average lending rate by commercial banks is currently standing around 20.5%. Now, with the rise in the policy rate, and even beyond that, the rise in the reserve requirements by the central bank, which now requires banks to keep 12% of their money as reserve. What that means is that there wouldn't be so much money out there for banks to lend to businesses. So if you're a business, it becomes quite competitive accessing financing from the commercial bank. It might come at a higher interest rate, given that general interest rate levels have increased in the market. So that is one thing that you should watch out for as an SME. There could be some
So this makes the
uh,
climate for SMEs even more difficult because they're going to now be competing for finance.
Yeah, so that is why beyond just the bank, and this intervention has become a very necessary intervention given the times we are in. But then again, it doesn't cut out SMEs from being able to access financing. As I indicated, there are varied and diverse sources that an SME could look out for. Now, one particular financing source that an SME can look out for in times like this is what I would call patient capital, which is capital that gives you room to run without imposing so much restriction on you. And for that, SMEs having established businesses with demonstrated revenue can look at applying to companies that can provide them with some form of equity. Now, equity is sometimes provided by some firms called private equity. And with the equity, it comes with they basically agreeing to be part owners of your company, and in return, providing that capital which you need to fuel your growth. So SMEs that have demonstrated record, they have established revenues, and they fall within that attractive zone which we described, could look at applying to private equity firms in Ghana and even beyond Ghana to be able to beef up an alternative source of financing for them.
Wow. Patient capital. That's what I am hearing here, and it's quite a new term. How do businesses find patient financing that gives them the room to operate without putting pressure on them? Are bank loans patient capital?
Well, generally, in a stricter sense, we wouldn't consider bank loan as a patient capital. The reason being that with a bank loan, when you are financed by the bank, there is normally a drawdown payment schedule, which says, let me say, a month after we've disbursed the money to you, you have to pay this amount of money. And based on the plan, it could be monthly payments, quarterly payments, or semi-annual payments. Now, the unfortunate thing is that in businesses, so many things can happen. The business dynamics could change. So you realize that maybe when it is time for you to pay, you may not have actually realized that amount of money, which can help you service that debt. But the bank wouldn't care. It's an agreed payment timeline, right? So they are likely to come chasing the money, of which if you start defaulting, you might be classified differently. So we don't consider generally a bank loan as a patient capital, given the terms, which is very definite and fixed. What we call a patient capital are the kind of facilities out there that, like I said, are very flexible. They give you room to operate and to grow, and they do not impose condition or strict timelines on you, which you might not be able to fulfill at some point. And equity, which is normally given by private equity firms and other firms, could be one possible way. But for bank loans, given their strict nature and the strict repayment schedule that you have to follow, from day one, you have to start making money to start paying the money. If you're not able to make the money, you'll not be able to service the debt, which would come with its own repercussions.
Kingsley, with this present business climate, high interest rates, a very unstable currency, how can businesses stay afloat? We also realize that inflation seems to be pushing up and raw materials keep getting expensive by the day. How are businesses going to manage to stay afloat at this time?
Yeah, so I think the very first thing that businesses have to do, given the general conditions that we have in our market, is to work, let me first say, work with a plan and work in line with their strategy. Doing things beyond what you've actually set out to do, your core things would probably come with its own let me say consequences given the time you are in. So the very first thing you have to do is to have a strategy that you are going to operate in. The second thing you can also do is to diversify your sources. Now let's assume you were importing, but then now it becomes, let me say, expensive to import given the rising the depreciation of the cedi. One other thing you can look at is, can I consider alternative sources for that same material? If I was importing from China, but now given that I have to cough up more money to be able to import, given the dollar rates right now, possibly there could be a cheap alternative source on the local market that could serve as a supply base. So one thing that SMEs could look out for is to look at diversifying their supply where the terms that they are currently seeing are unfavorable to them. The very third thing they can also do is to, one, as much as possible, before also spending extra money on any venture or expanding, there should be, again, a validated market. I keep recircling back to this point because it's one thing that we realize that even in a normal business climate, businesses were just going all about, or some businesses sometimes go all about looking for money without having a market ready for it. Given the times we are in and the fact that there are, let me say, constraints in the economy, you would as much as possible want to execute strategies where there are ready markets for it. So that could be a third source that you can look at. So find a way to diversify your supply base if it matters. And that is, if you are importing, you have to consider buying locally. Please do find a way to develop a strategy and stick to it. And find a way to also work within the work of what the market needs. And the very fourth one, which I already mentioned, is find a way to look for capital, which at this point in time could be crucial to your business success and wouldn't come at a cost that you wouldn't be able to bear.
Interesting over there. But when you say start to find raw materials locally, what if the local sourcing is more expensive than what you get abroad?
So that is unfortunately that is the hard truth. So yes, in times like this, you would normally see business repricing their items. Something which they were selling for 2 cities could be 3 cities because of the supply constraint. And it's okay. Again, as a business, you are not currently set. You are not set out to make a loss. Your basic mandate is to generate that, is to maximize your return, we normally say. So if the alternatives are still looking, let me say, bad, again, there would always be a slightly better alternative. Keep searching. Look for sources that could give you that right margins to work with. Because in times like this, your key focus should be cost optimization. Don't balloon your costs. Don't spend on something where in the end you know your users will not be willing to pay for it. So as much as possible, keep searching. And if there is a one city that you can save on something which gives you the same quality, go for it.
Cost optimization and profit maximization, looking for the sources that will give you the best marginal returns in your business. That's one of the ways you can scale a difficult business climate which most businesses are presently experiencing. Kingsley, if you can just give me your last words. We're almost out of time, and then we can be out of here.
So I'll basically say starting a business, yes, is sometimes very difficult, and it's even more difficult as you grow and to expand. So for every entrepreneur or SME out there, just know that yes, that is what comes with it. But then there is one common quote which I would want to leave listeners with, and it was shared by one popular investor in the US. He indicated that be impatient with actions and patient with results. As an entrepreneur, whatever you need to be able to get your business on the right footing, if it means being attractive, to be able to attract the right level of financing, if it's about being able to enter into good supply arrangement, whatever that you need to do to be able to be on the right footing, go out there and make it happen. Be very impatient till you are operating on the right margin and on the right borders. And then when you are done with that, be patient to the results. It might take some time, but then when you scale the business using the right capital and the right execution plan, it will definitely pay off. So don't be in a rush to look for money or to look for financing when you have not established your strategies, you've not laid down what you intend to do. But the moment you have everything figured out, look for whatever you need that can help you achieve your objective as a business.
Thank you so much, Kingsley Edu Ochri. He's an investment professional. He's also an entrepreneur. You have to put down the right structures, have the right strategy in place before you go in for financing, so you're sure exactly where it's going, so it can optimize your operations and bring you the profit that you're looking for. We also spoke with Dr. Patrick Esumi, who is senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Samuel Anyo Mensah, economist and lecturer at Wisconsin University, and Dr. Daniel Enim, who's an economist. They all joined us on Zoom and on phone. Now let me tell you about the MX24 Jollof Derby. But before that, let me tell you also about Bezo Susu Jollof Cup promotion, which is on March 25. You'll be settling this long-standing war between, at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium. And guess what? You can get a free ticket and a branded jersey to go and watch the match live with Bezo Susu. So if you want to go to the Baba Yara Sports Stadium to watch this match, please, the Bezo Susu is a savings platform which allows you to save easily and conveniently on your phone. Just sign up at www.bezosusu.com. Go right to that website. When you sign up, you get a referral code. Give the referral code to your friends and your family. Let them also sign up. Get more referrals and create the Jollof savings goal and deposit just 2 CDs. Now share a screenshot of your referrals via DM at Bezo Susu on Instagram. Go to their Instagram page and share this referral code and stand a chance to be part of 20 winners. 20 winners will be picked to join Bezo Susu Jama Bus. Winners will be announced on the 23rd of March on Bezo Susu's social media platforms. So please go follow them at Bezo Susu, that's BEZOSUSU on Instagram. My name is Noong Falong, and here at MX24, we are all grateful for your time this evening. Do join us same time tomorrow, 5 p.m. Spotlight will be live. Good evening.